How Stefano DiMera turned Days of Our Lives into an 80s masterpiece of chaos. Salem. There is a specific kind of silence that used to fall over living rooms in the mid-1980s. It wasn't the silence of boredom. It was the silence of dread. The camera would cut to a gothic study, the air thick with cigar smoke, a chess piece sliding across a marble board. Then, the voice. A gravelly, accented whisper that sounded like velvet wrapped over steel. Hello, my dear. For fans of Days of Our Lives, that sound was the siren song of doom. It meant Stefano DiMera was on the line, and for nearly a decade, head writer Pat Falcon-Smith and actor Joseph Mascolo did something that modern streaming villains rarely achieve. They made an entire generation love to hate a man who was essentially a supervillain in a soap opera skin. This is the story of the creative alchemy that turned a mustache-twirling interloper into the most feared and beloved Phoenix of the 1980s. The problem: a soap opera needs a real monster. Before 1981, Days of Our Lives was known for its wholesome, family-driven drama centered on the Hortons and the Bradys. Villains existed. There were scheming ex-wives and corrupt businessmen, but they were human-scaled. They cheated on taxes or faked a pregnancy. They did not, as a rule, hook people's brains to mind control devices. Enter Pat Falcon-Smith. Having just finished her legendary Ice Princess arc on General Hospital, she knew the audience was hungry for operatic stakes. The late 70s had given way to a new cultural appetite. The blockbuster, Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back had proven that audiences wanted grand, mythological evil. When Smith introduced Stefano DiMera in 1981, he wasn't just a rival for the affections of Dr. Marlena Evans. He was the leader of a global criminal empire. He didn't just want money, he wanted souls. He specifically wanted Marlena's soul, and he was willing to brainwash her, imprison her, and resurrect himself from the dead to get it. The character design. The suit, the ring, the cigar. Creatively, the genius of Stefano began with aesthetics. Joseph Mascolo, a classically trained musician and actor with a background in film, understood that a villain must command space before he speaks. Costume designers gave him a uniform of power, tailored Italian suits, a heavy pinky ring, and an ever-present cigar that he used as a prop for menace. But the most creative choice was the Phoenix motif. Stefano wasn't just killed, he was believed to be killed, only to rise from the ashes. In the 1980s, this was radical. Soap operas had fake deaths, sure, but Stefano turned death into a character trait. When Marlena pushed him out of a window, he survived. When a building exploded, he was in Switzerland. This wasn't lazy writing. It was a deliberate commentary on the nature of evil. You cannot kill the idea of corruption. The Salem Strangler twist. When hate became art, the pivotal moment that transformed Stefano from a background mobster to a legend occurred in 1982-83. The show introduced the Salem Strangler, a serial killer stalking the women of Salem. For months, viewers assumed it was Stefano. A logical, if terrifying, conclusion. He was the villain, after all. Then came the twist. It wasn't Stefano. It was a mild-mannered restaurateur named Jake Kozacek. This creative choice was brilliant for two reasons. First, it humanized Stefano by comparison. Yes, he was a criminal, but he wasn't that kind of criminal. Second, it established Stefano's true superpower: plausible deniability. He didn't need to hold the knife. He manipulated the system. He was the puppet master, not the puppet. By the mid-80s, Stefano had graduated to his most famous storyline, the brainwashing of Marlena Evans. In a plot that directly echoed the Manchurian Candidate, Stefano transformed the town's beloved psychiatrist into his submissive slave, Marlena, my love. He dressed her in black leather, locked her in a crypt, and forced her to obey his every whim. It was camp. It was terrifying. It was ratings gold. Why we loved to hate him here is the creative anomaly. Stefano DiMera should have been repulsive. He was a kidnapper, a torturer, and a gaslighter. And yet, viewers tuned in specifically to watch him win. Why? Because Joseph Mascolo played him with a twinkle of absolute joy. Unlike modern prestige villains who brood about their trauma, Stefano loved his job. He cackled. He danced to classical music after ruining a wedding. He called his enemies, my dear, as a term of condescending endearment. Mascolo understood a fundamental rule of villainy. The audience will hate the character, but they will admire the performance. Moreover, the writers gave Stefano a twisted code of honor. He never hit a woman. He adored his, also villainous, children. He genuinely believed he was the hero of his own story, that the Bradys were the terrorists ruining his dream of a perfect family. In an era of Reagan-era, greed is good capitalism, Stefano represented the id, the part of us that wants to take what we want, consequences be damned. The legacy. The Phoenix still flies. The 1980s ended, but Stefano never stayed dead. He returned throughout the 90s and 2000s until Joseph Mascolo's passing in 2016. But the blueprint he laid down in that decade changed soaps forever. Before Stefano, villains were obstacles. After Stefano, they were institutions. He proved that a soap opera could sustain a supervillain, a character whose evil was so grand, so theatrical, that the weekly drama of who was sleeping with whom felt like a warm-up act. Looking back, the creativity of 80s Days of Our Lives wasn't just in the shocking twists or the cliffhangers. It was in the audacity to take a daytime slot, during the hour when people were folding laundry or eating lunch, and turn it into a gothic opera about mind control and resurrection. That takes nerve. Stefano DiMera was a monster. But he was our monster. And every time a modern show tries to create a love to hate villain, from Succession's Logan Roy to Stranger Things' Vecna, they are walking in the shadow of the Phoenix. As Stefano would say, just before revealing he was still alive, fate takes care of everything, my dear.